It all started with a simple, quiet gesture. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick, quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, took a knee during the national anthem. He was protesting police brutality and racial inequality in America. It was a silent protest, meant to draw attention to a serious issue. But in America, even silence can be loud. The reaction was immediate and intense. People called him unpatriotic, accused him of disrespecting the flag and the military. The conversation shifted from police brutality to whether a football player had the right to kneel. The protest became a national drama, with every pre-game ceremony scrutinized. The president called for kneeling players to be fired. News channels debated it for hours. Families argued at dinner tables, all from one man taking a knee. Kaepernick forced a conversation many wanted to avoid. It was uncomfortable, disruptive, and that's the point of protest. He used the football field to hold up a mirror to the country. Not everyone liked what they saw. The backlash proved the power of his protest. You don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes all you need to do is take a knee. One gesture revealed deep divisions simmering beneath the surface. It showed how a small act could touch a very big nerve, and it made America look at itself, whether it wanted to or not. Colin Kaepernick paid a heavy price for his protest. His NFL career ended. No team would sign him. Owners feared backlash from fans and politicians. He lost his job and became a political villain to many. This wasn't just disagreement, it was cancellation. The message: step out of line and you'll be punished. Protesters risk more than angry tweets. They risk livelihoods, safety, even their lives. Speaking truth to power is never safe or easy. History is full of activists who risked everything. Civil rights activists faced violence and arrest. Suffragettes were ridiculed, jailed, and brutalized. The backlash is part of the process. It means the protest is working. Those in power push back because they feel threatened. They try to discredit the messenger, not the message. Kaepernick was called un-American, just as MLK was called a communist. The goals shift focus from the issue to the person. It's an old tactic and it often works. It scares people into silence. But real change requires courage to speak out anyway. The cost is high, but the stakes are higher. Protesters know this, and do it anyway. Time changes everything. Today, we honor Martin Luther King Jr. as a hero, but in his time, he was seen as a troublemaker. The same goes for abolitionists. They were once considered extremists. Suffragettes were ridiculed and arrested for demanding the vote. Labor organizers were branded as radicals and met with violence. Each group was condemned in their time, only to be celebrated later. Their actions were disruptive, unpopular, and often dangerous. They faced hatred, violence, and ridicule. Yet, they persisted. The rights we now take for granted were won by people willing to be unpopular. History recasts yesterday's rebels as today's heroes. The establishment always resists change, until it doesn't. Progress is made by those willing to endure condemnation. Every advance in justice started with someone being called a villain, and every hero was once a disruptor. How did we get the rights we cherish today? They weren't handed down, they were fought for. Every major expansion of freedom in America was won through protest. The United States itself was born from rebellion, not polite requests. The Boston Tea Party was an act of destruction, not a tea party. We call those rebels patriots now. The end of slavery, women's suffrage, civil rights, all came from relentless protest. Change is born from conflict and disruption. It comes from people willing to make noise and break the rules. Polite requests are easy to ignore. Protests are not. Marches, strikes, and boycotts force a response. Progress is uncomfortable. It challenges systems that benefit some at the expense of others. Protest makes the comfortable uncomfortable. That's how change happens. Every step forward has been a struggle. The truth: progress is rarely polite. It's demanded, not given. Imagine you're locked out of a dinner party, knocking politely but ignored. At some point, you break a window to be heard. That's the dilemma protesters face. They're on the outside, demanding a seat at the table. Protest is the act of making power notice. It's messy, disruptive, and often makes people angry. But it gets attention. Polite, out-of-the-way protests rarely achieve much. A protest that doesn't disrupt is just a parade. The goal is to create friction, to interrupt business as usual. Labor strikes worked when they shut down factories, not when they asked nicely. Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat sparked a boycott that changed history. Disruption works. It forces those in power to respond. Change comes when the status quo becomes untenable. Protesters break the silence, so they can finally be heard. Sometimes, breaking a window is the only way in. Some say protest is un-American. But the right to protest is as American as it gets. It's written into the First Amendment, the right to assemble and petition the government. That's the permission slip. You have the right to gather, to speak out, to demand change. It doesn't say you have to be polite or quiet. The founders knew a government without critics becomes tyranny. Protest is the emergency brake on government. It's the fire alarm when something's burning. To call protest un-American is to misunderstand our history. Of course, the word peaceably matters. The First Amendment protects nonviolent assembly. But disruption isn't violence. Blocking a street or chanting loudly isn't violence. Those in power often label disruption as violence to justify crackdowns. But making people uncomfortable isn't violence. The Constitution gives us a powerful tool. Patriotism means using it, not just celebrating the country's successes, but demanding it live up to its ideals. Protest is a core part of democracy. It's not just allowed, it's essential. Nobody likes being disrupted. That's exactly why disruption is powerful. It forces us to pay attention to issues we'd rather ignore. Injustice is easy to overlook when it doesn't affect us. But when protest blocks your commute, you can't ignore it. Disruption is the enemy of apathy. Polite requests are easy to dismiss. Disruption demands a response. When patience runs out, disruption begins. It's the language of the unheard. It's the last resort for those denied a voice. Instead of focusing on inconvenience, ask, what injustice drove people to the streets? Shifting perspective is crucial. Protesters aren't just a nuisance. They're citizens demanding justice. Disruption moves us from comfort to conscience. That's how change starts. We've seen how every group that pushed America forward was first condemned as disruptive. Progress isn't handed down. It's demanded, often loudly and messily. The real question, what does it mean to be a patriot? Is it blind loyalty, or loving your country enough to challenge it? When is disruption justified? Only for causes we agree with, or as a fundamental right? At what point does injustice demand action, even disruption? These are questions every citizen must wrestle with. What issue would drive you to protest, to risk your comfort for a better world? Your answer says a lot about you, and about the country we share. The future of democracy depends on how we answer.